We're not on yet.
No, we're not. Are we on? Did she tell us? All right, call this meeting to the Police Advisory Committee to order. First, I would like to begin with our land acknowledgement. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the district of Spaganagity, the ancestor and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. East Hand further acknowledges that the 50 African Nova Scotian communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, and legacies. We are all treaty people. First up is the approval of the agenda for all subcommittees.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Oh, excuse me. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Due to a medical appointment later this afternoon, I will have to step out early, and I was wondering if we could move items 26, 27, and 28 to the beginning of Planning and Advisory Committee rather than the end. So I'm here for those that directly affect my area.
What is the wishes of the committee? Is there any negative comments? All right, I'll have a motion that we do that, please.
So I'll move that we move items number 26, 27, and 28 to the beginning of Planning and Advisory Committee.
Second, moved by Councillor Perry, seconded by Councillor Deputy Warden McPhee. All those in favor?
All right.
Contrary of mind, motion's carried. Now, acceptance of the amended agenda. Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary of mind, motion's carried. All right, first off, I have something I want to run by everybody. Everybody was subject to a criminal records check within Police Advisory Committee. We have two councillors who have not received theirs of yet. I think Councillor Musa has applied for one and hasn't heard it back. And Councillor Perry has not applied for one yet, but he has a whatever it is, a highfalutin one there from federal government there for through his work. That's, excuse me for lack of a better term, it couldn't come to me. So everybody is subject to how, what is the feelings of everyone on the committee if they participate? I've talked to Sherry Lee, who has abundance of information on this committee, and you could run it in a way that if a vote comes that the two members would not participate in the vote, you could have another option of they could go to the gallery and sit while this meeting's on. So those are or let them participate fully. So what is your wish? I'd like to hear from them. First up, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If they can't vote, can they participate in discussion?
That's to be determined. I'm leaving it up to you guys instead of me ruling right now. Councillor McPhee.
Wondering about the swearing or affirming the oath. Would they be able to do that without the criminal records check?
Well, that's a question that Sherry Lee discussed. She and I and we felt they could, but that's a subject to what the committee feels.
I'm fine with it, but
You're fine with it?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Councillor or Warden Rolston?
Yeah, the problem here comes that the Police Act says subject to the criminal records check to serve on the committee. And the MGA comes from the Police Act, and we get our authority or regulation for our policies from the MGA. So it's not just our rule. And I have no doubt that both members will have their criminal records checked with no problem. But I'm not sure if we have the authority to do it. I don't have a problem with the swear oath and the swearing in thing because, you know, they can certainly do that. But I just, you know, I'm not sure about participating in the meeting until that criminal records check is in. And the second thing that was brought to my attention, and I'll just pass it on, that we don't want to be seen as holding our public members to a higher standard than our own counselors, because we would not allow a public member to serve on the committee if they did not get the criminal records check. So those were the concerns that were brought to me. There's certainly nothing personal, and I understand that it takes longer sometimes to get the criminal records check than it does other times. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, what's everybody's wish? Counselor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no problem, like, sitting in the gallery or doing whatever today, whatever the will of the committee is. The last number of years, my security clearance has always been used as my criminal record check, and I have no problem going out next week and getting a criminal records check done as well and having that complete. So it was just a mix-up on my part, thinking that it was already done. So I have no problem following the will of committee, and I have no problem sitting in the gallery for the portion of this meeting whatsoever. Thank you.
Seeing no one left to speak, Counselor McPhee. Deputy Warden McPhee.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's probably the best solution, just from what the warden just said, is, you know, participate, we don't break any rules, and that'd be perfect.
Counselor Musa and Counselor Perry, would you mind sitting in the gallery for this portion of the meeting? So that being taken care of, we've heard from Nicole, the public member. She's on her way. And Counselor, or Public Member Dinsmore, we have not heard anything from them, so. And Counselor Tingley is here on live stream. He's trying?
He's here.
Is he there? All right, Counselor Tingley. Counselor Tingley is here on live. All right. Next order of business, approval of minutes. Did we do that? November the 12th, 2024. What is your wish? Moved by Counselor Mitchell, seconded by Counselor Hibb. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary of mine, motion is carried. Next order of business is the oath of office for council members and public members. No, public members previously took theirs, so it's council members. I don't have mine. Thank you, sir. Okay, I do believe, somebody can correct me if I'm mistaken, but we can all read this in uniform, put in your name as stated in your oath, and we can do it in unison. And I do believe we can do this from a sitting position, or? All right. All right. I'll start it off. I, Keith Rhino of Maitland, in the municipality in the district of East Hants, swear and affirm that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the East Hants Police Advisory Committee. And while I continue to hold office, I will do all my judgment, skill, knowledge, and ability, carry out, discharge, and perform all duties of my office faithfully, impartially, and according to the Police Act or any other act in any regulation, rule, or bylaw, and will not accept in the discharge of my duties disclose to any person any matter or evidence brought before the East Hants Police Advisory Committee. So help me God, I so swear and affirm. And Shirley, you'll be gathering these up after the signatures of all members? Okay, the next order of business would be the presentation from the Department of Justice, continuation of training. Correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle Desjardins and Kurt. That's your Danielle. And
I'm not Kurt.
I kind of wondered if you weren't.
My name is Chelsea Marshaw.
Okay. All right, so you'll be giving us, projecting some training for us. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over. Who's going first? Okay.
Okay. So nice to meet you all. I'm the Director of Public Safety and Policing with the Department of Justice. No, I am not Kurt Komatsky. Kurt Komatsky is on my team, and he was actually supposed to be here last time, I believe, but there was a bit of a mix-up and then some weather and some illnesses and all the other different things. So luckily I was able to be here today. So next slide, please. We're just going to roll into some of the goals and objectives really quickly. We'll provide you with an update of who we are as the Public Safety and Security Division. Things like the police review, we'll run through a bit of a quick update on that. We will set the stage by kind of talking about the principles of policing. We'll talk about role of effective governance, authorities and functions of the board, or I guess the committee that you get from the Police Act, and then the roles and responsibilities of your position here on this committee. Next slide, please. And the next one, yeah. So this is strictly an overview of the Department of Justice to provide you with some context as to where the Public Safety and Security Division sits within the Department of Justice. So we report to Associate Deputy Minister Michelle Higgins, who reports up to our Deputy Minister Jennifer Glennie, and then of course to our Minister and Attorney General Becky Drouin. So you have a full picture there, and I won't go through them all just given how much time we have today, but you have a clear picture there as to who we are as the Department of Justice and all of the kind of portfolios that fit under that department as well. Next slide, please. Oh, you're ahead of me. So who we are as the Public Safety and Security Division, we really work to promote the safety and security of Nova Scotians by collaborating with various partners. And that could be you, for example, municipal governments or provincial governments. We work a lot with the federal government, obviously given the RCMP contract. But of course, in addition to that, we support a number of other programs here within the province. I'll run through really quickly as to some of the units that you may see here, but we'll talk more in depth about two of them that you'll see stars next to. So Policing Strategies, that is our unit that is actually hosting and leading the police review with the Department of Justice, and I'll provide an update on that on the next slide. We have our Crime Prevention and Indigenous Policing team, and of course they support our different contracts with the RCMP for Indigenous policing. The Public Safety Audit function will, of course, audit to the provincial policing standards that were just launched earlier in 2024. And the Public Safety Investigations Unit, we do have Tim Mills with us here today, who is part of that unit. However, we'll go through kind of an in-depth picture of how you can actually use that unit here in your communities. We have our Corporate Security Office, which is responsible for the safety and security of our provincial government staff, in addition to the actual security of our buildings, our assets, and our leased land as well, or owned land that the province has. We have our Provincial Firearms Office, so that is obviously the office that administers the Federal Firearms Act on behalf of Canada. and they provide licenses or review or revoke applications for licenses for firearms here in Nova Scotia. We have our security programs office, which provides licenses to security guards, so think Paladin or Garda-World. And then we have our service dog program, which provides certifications through an ID card for service dog teams, i.e. an individual and their dog, once it's been trained and certified to be a service dog. So the public safety audit function is separate from policing strategies and governance, and that's strictly because policing strategies is the one who actually sets the provincial policing standards in collaboration with the Minister of Justice. And then the public safety audit function, of course, audits the police agencies to those standards. So yes, the RCMP is subject to the provincial audits, and Danielle will kind of go through some other mechanisms as well that the RCMP must meet for accountability. But here in Nova Scotia, our public safety audit function will audit the RCMP to ensure that they are meeting or exceeding the provincial policing standards. So we've determined that we will take a risk-based audit planning process. So we'll look at kind of communities as a whole to determine the level of risk. For the RCMP audits will be a little bit different because we won't be kind of going detachment to detachment. We'll be kind of selecting areas in which we may see a higher risk based on like crime rates and other factors that we're seeing through our relationship with Stats Canada, to collect data about the regions. So how your committee will be involved in that will be very important. We also have a separate presentation if you're ever interested. Our managing auditor, Chris McNeil, can come and actually provide an overview to your committee as to how you'll be engaged throughout the audit process. However, kind of one thing to note is that each final audit will be very unique because it's based on the community and less about kind of having a blanket or a templated format. So final reports will be tabled to you. So please, if you have any questions about how that process will roll, please connect with Chris McNeil and he'll come provide a comprehensive overview of how they'll be selecting topics, how they'll be selecting locations, and then walk you through what you can expect as the committee. All right, Public Safety Investigations Unit. So if you've heard of SCAN or the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Act, it is an act here in Nova Scotia that is enforced by our Public Safety Investigations Unit that helps communities kind of provide a method to report their complaints of activities happening in their neighborhood, i.e. drug activity, the sale of illegal alcohol, so alcohol that was either bought at the NSLC and redistributed or sold for a separate purpose, and or homemade alcohol. We'd also do illegal gambling as well, or illegal gaming, and it's really about what the property itself is used for. So i.e. if you have a property in your neighborhood or your community that is causing concerns and is adversely affecting the community, you can call our Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Act, who can investigate that complaint. So it is a civil piece of legislation. However, if the public safety investigators determine that there is definitely something of criminal nature, i.e. we have seen oftentimes there are young females frequenting the home, those are immediately passed to the human trafficking unit for investigation. Is completely separate from our investigation. So Tim Mills is an investigator even in this region. So you would likely get him or another one of our members if you placed a call to the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Act. Once an investigation is launched, there are several things that we can do to try to resolve this issue in community. First is resolving it by informal action. The second is providing a warning letter, and that warning letter describes, we see the illegal activity that's happening at your property, and if you do not cease the activity, we can apply to the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia for a community safety order. The community safety order can shut down the property, no entry to the property for up to 90 days. That puts the property in control of the Director of Public Safety, and it stays that way for a total of a year, even if they can come back after the 90 days. So we can impose conditions on that order. If you are interested in that program, one successful story we've had is our Highland Motel in Sydney, where we actually didn't close, we placed conditions instead. So we were able to track the visitor logs, we were able to track when they could be open to the public or not. We were able to impose a chain fence across the driveway so they could close it in the evening, so that was reducing the traffic kind of coming in and out all hours of the night. So if you have any questions about how you can utilize that program, please feel free to share it as well amongst the community, because it's important that we kind of get the word out about that program as well. But if you have any questions, you can call the toll-free line that's down below, and Heather can talk you through our program. Next slide, please. Police review. So as you know, the province announced that we will conduct a comprehensive policing review, and the review is kind of divided into two main and distinct streams. So the first is the technical review of policing that's being done by Deloitte. And Deloitte is kind of looking at everything that you can kind of dream of in relation to policing. So think calls for service, files, talking to frontline police officers, talking to police leaders, looking at the status and the role of the provincial policing standards, and really kind of getting the clear picture of the police model here in Nova Scotia. Our Police Review Engagement Advisory Committee, which is our second stream, was really about connecting directly with community to hear the concerns and or opportunities that they foresee in policing here in Nova Scotia. So through that, we were able to connect with over 150 different stakeholders or interested parties. That was some other departments of the province of Nova Scotia, the federal government, municipal governments. We had a survey directly for police advisory boards, boards of police commissioners. There's a number of different kind of methods for the public to provide their feedback. So recommendations may change how policing services are delivered here in Nova Scotia, and we are hoping to have a final report by spring of 2025. So the Mass Casualty Commission's final report, and the reason why that we mentioned this is because there was a number of recommendations through the MCC final report that directly related to police governance. And the really the most important one in the police governance ones was this training, actually, and really kind of making that direct connection between these types of boards and committees and the province of Nova Scotia, but also being able to have police boards and committees really understand what their role is in policing. So we were able to kind of analyze that entire report in addition to a number of other reports that you'll see on the next slide, if you want to flick to the next slide, that we were able to kind of deduce what exactly are those reports kind of getting to as it relates to police governance. So boards should be representative of the communities that they serve. You should be meeting regularly and consistently. You should really understand your role in the oversight of policing, which is exactly why we're here today. You'll participate in priority setting exercises. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then Danielle will kind of dive a little deeper into that. And then, of course, providing strategic direction to the overall community safety here in East Hants. So we'll roll into the principles of policing. Again, I'm not going to read these, word for word, but really being able to understand what the MCC called for as it relates to the principles of policing, but also some of the other reports that I've mentioned on the previous slide. And it's basically kind of breaks it down into these 8 principles, which really focus on promoting measures to prevent crime. Police must undertake missions that is collaborative. They must carry out their tasks. They must treat everyone who they come in contact with fairness and respect. You can kind of go through them there, but really what the last one kind of summarizes is policing should be undertaken by multiple providers, and it should remain in the public good. So we have been socializing these principles of policing for you as the committees and boards to kind of better understand what we're really setting as that foundation of policing and the expectations of policing in Nova Scotia. I know I'm running out of time, Danielle. So effective governance, of course, we'll dive into these a little bit more. So really your role here on this committee is focused on creating a vision, setting a destination, ensuring you have the resources allocated to do the work and to get to the vision and destination that you've established. Determine how you do monitoring of those visions and destinations. And again, we'll talk about the priority setting exercises and kind of a great way for you to be able to monitor that success. And then, of course, having a level of accountability to ensure that you're getting progress reports from the RCMP, you're really understanding kind of what they're doing here in your community. And I think I saw on the agenda they're up after us, so kind of a good way to make that connection. Next slide, please. The key, though, to having you kind of sit on this board is exactly what's demonstrated in this slide, is allowing the RCMP to have their independence. However, your job is really to promote accountability and really making sure that you're consistently keeping that in mind, that the RCMP must remain police independence, and we are not here to really direct policing resources or policing tactics or policing operations. However, your job is really to create that level of accountability and ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but in their own policing operations way. So next slide, please. So where do you get your authority? You were talking a little bit about authority earlier when you were talking about the oath, but yes, you get your authority from the Nova Scotia Police Act. And of course, the Minister of Justice is to make sure that there's an adequate and effective level of policing that is maintained throughout the province. So hopefully you have all read the sections of the Police Act that pertain to you, but we'll jump into them a little bit on the next few slides. So Section 57, of course, says that policing services that are received by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police as the provincial police will establish a police advisory board. I understand you have an exemption to have the committee. So here on the slide, you'll see what the typical composition of the board should be. But pausing for a second to know if you have a ministerial appointment. You do? Okay, great. So next slide regarding recruitment. Individual municipalities are responsible for the recruitment of board members. So if you ever lose your ministerial appointment, either through them not reoffering and or you're looking to open it up, you must point people towards the Executive Council Office, agencies, boards, commissions, which there'll be a link there for you to have individuals apply to be your new ministerial appointment. So equity, diversity, and inclusion on the board. Really, what we're trying to ensure here is that you have representation on the board that reflects the communities that you serve. So we are always encouraging boards to have diversity training, and that could be through the already existing diversity training that your municipality offers for their councillors and or their staff. So it's good to have that conversation. If you have not received any diversity training, please kind of have that discussion as a group, especially with your council, to be able to determine what is the most appropriate for your community. And please ensure that you're kind of prioritizing that as well. So what is your function? Great to see you're doing your oath of office. That is great. Really happy to see that. Some people don't know that that is a requirement, so really, really happy. But really understanding as well that you must agree to the code of conduct and that board members shall instill public confidence in the board, attend meetings, maintain confidentiality. Again, that non-interference in police operations, but really having that kind of one voice. So when you're out in the community and you're talking about your police committee meetings, how are you kind of representing that committee all in all out in the community so that they have confidence not only in their policing service, but also in your role on this police committee. So it is important that you engage with community members, of course, to identify gaps or opportunities in policing. Again, we'll talk about that with policing priorities, but really good to always have that kind of community need reflected in everything that you do. Next slide, please. So Section 68 is, again, a little bit different because I think you have a bit of a different composition, but the function of the board is to provide advice to council, but again, is not to exercise jurisdiction in complaints, discipline, personnel conduct of the RCMP or the internal management of the RCMP. So if you have any concerns with the RCMP, we'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides, but you really are not executing your jurisdiction in those areas specifically. So here's kind of the meat and potatoes of it, if you shall. So first one is setting priorities and objectives. So Danielle's going to jump into that of how exactly that kind of feeds into the broader priority setting process. But one of the things that we have been socializing is really working with your local detachment commanders to identify local priorities for the RCMP. Do you do that already? Yes, good. So Danielle's going to walk you through exactly how it connects to the provincial policing priorities and likely to the national RCMP priorities as well. But it's really important that you kind of set those local priorities and you have those conversations ongoing with your detachment commanders to better understand, you know, again, how are you reflecting those community needs into those priorities? How are you engaging about those priorities with your community before you set them? And then kind of what is your responsibility as the detachment commander moves throughout the year to ensure that they are either meeting or exceeding that priority. So again, good to see that the RCMP, our friends from the RCMP are here and are able to kind of provide those reporting to you. And of course, their reporting, once you have your local priorities set, should be focused on how they are meeting or exceeding those priorities, in addition to providing an overview of what's happening in your community. So the second one is community relations, and your role as a police committee member is really about community relations. So again, how are you taking that community feedback in, regardless if it's gaps or opportunities, really focusing on having that conversation as a committee to better serve the public. So we've heard different methods of doing this. So we've heard town halls, we've heard very informally at coffee shops, your favorite coffee shops. All of those things are critically important to be able to feed into the committee and better understand the policing priorities here in your own jurisdiction. So really what your role as a board member focuses on is these six things. So understanding the impact of government authority. So when we're talking about the Police Act or the Municipal Governments Act, and really understanding the government authority that comes with a role like this one, having familiarity of the Police Act, of course, and other relevant legislations, understanding the operating structure. So again, noting you have a bit of a different operating structure, so really focused on kind of better understanding how that works, but also how you work with your police service. Remaining up to date with changes affecting the police services and in your communities, and this could be a prime example of the provincial policing standards, so having an understanding of the role of the provincial policing standards in your communities, and making sure that you're having those kind of open conversations with your detachment commanders. Abiding by the rules, regulations, and policies, and then of course participating in meetings and voting as appropriate. So this one, if you've seen this handout before, you may even have a few kicking around. We are working on updating this handout so that we can provide you with new copies. I think this handout was actually last updated in 2007. So probably a good time for us to refresh it, and then we'll circulate those to the boards once they are complete. So you'll have kind of a handheld version of what you should be doing. So last section for me, how it kind of works between your council, your board, and your detachment commanders. Again, the council, when they're operating as council, focuses on the selection and appointments of members. They set the bylaws or the rules and policies for your police advisory committee or your committee. And then, of course, the purpose of your committee is to provide that governance structure that sets objectives, priorities, and acts as that liaison between the RCMP and council. Your detachment commanders, of course, again, are the managers of that operation, that police operation, and they're responsible for actually delivering on the policing services and meeting to work to advance those priorities that you've set as a committee to ensure that they're meeting or exceeding them. So I won't go kind of over this in detail because it's everything we just kind of talked about around consultation, but really kind of looking at understanding how you're working with the RCMP and making sure that you're determining that that layer, or I guess that level of engagement you're having with the RCMP is appropriate for your needs. Again, balancing that independence and accountability, but making sure that your RCMP are continuing to have those conversations with you through the reports and mechanisms that you already provide to them. So that's great.
Recognizing that I've already gone over this at the meeting, I believe it's back in November, I will quickly move through this. Oh, just the mic's on now. Okay, great. So the organizational structure of the RCMP, as you know, it's split into three different districts, all in different colors there. East Hants is part of Northeast Nova, who reports to a district operations or district policing officer, who then reports up to criminal operations officer, finally reporting to the commanding officer, Dennis Daly, Chief Assistant Commissioner Dennis Daly. Some additional accountability mechanisms beyond the ones that Charcy already alluded to. Internally within the RCMP, of course, there's reports that come through to police advisory boards and or council. They also publish a year in review, which is available on the external RCMP website. Of course, the RCMP is subject, their members are subject to code of conducts, contraventions of the RCMP Act and can face disciplinary measures for such things. Body-worn cameras are a relatively new initiative. H Division was lucky in the sense that they were able to pilot that, and the expectation is that they're going to be rolled out fully across the province or within H Division within the next few months. Managerial reviews are an internal function of the RCMP. They may look to audit everything from exhibits, financial management, of course, operations as well, and that will tie in greatly to the work that the public safety audit team within DOJ will be performing as well. And then lastly, annual performance plans, and I have this highlighted because that would be the RCMP's priorities. Locally at the detachment level, those priorities are going to be largely informed by the ones set by the Police Advisory Board, but they may include other items which come from the provincial priorities, divisional priorities, or even local priorities. For example, a detachment may want to focus on let's say paperwork. That might be something where they're noticing a deficiency there, and so they may set that priority, which may be different than what the board sets. However, they can all be kind of worked on collectively. So externally, the RCMP, obviously, the priorities that are set by police governance boards, we mentioned auditing. Contract Management Committee, that is a committee made up of representatives from Public Safety Canada, as well as provinces and territories in receipt of policing services from the RCMP, as well as some municipalities that have direct contracts. They provide oversight and governance of the police contracts more broadly, as they're very similar to one another. You also have this serious incident response team within Nova Scotia that responds to, or that would investigate instances of police wrongdoing or where there's injury or death in a police-involved situation. The Management Advisory Board as well is a independent board that reports to the Commissioner of the RCMP that provides advice and guidance on administrative matters. And then lastly, the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission, noting what Charcy had said, that the board does not itself have jurisdiction over complaints. When a member of the public has a complaint, they can bring that in the first instance to the detachment itself. However, if they're not comfortable with in doing so, or they're not satisfied with the outcome, they can reach out to the CRCC and they will investigate that complaint. Okay, next slide. So as I mentioned, there are different priorities here which kind of factor into the RCMP. At the top there you have the priorities that would be set by the police governing boards. They would then provide those to the detachment, and oftentimes there's a consultation piece there, but ultimately at the end of the day, those are set by the board. Those are then provided to the detachments. They would advance those and would action those as appropriate. But also the plan is for the province moving forward is to begin aggregating some of those priorities from municipal boards to help inform provincial priorities. Provincial priorities historically have been informed by the province. However, it's going to be important moving forward that they have that ear to the ground as to what's going on broadly with municipalities across Nova Scotia. Those provincial priorities are then provided to the division, so RCMP H Division, which would action those, but some of those can be actioned by detachment. So for example, human trafficking is one where the division has a human trafficking unit. They will likely do the brunt of that work in relation to that priority to advance that. However, it's possible that detachments may be able to do so as well. That would be in addition to any local priorities as well as detachment-specific priorities. Off to the side here, we have also National RCMP. They would also set national priorities, which may or may not be actioned. For example, a federal priority would not necessarily be actioned by the Provincial Police Service. However, something like youth, which is a current priority, is something that everybody within the RCMP can work on. And then off to the side, not to discount the importance of this, but of course, throughout all aspects of this process, consultation with stakeholders is going to be important to help inform those priorities. Of course, as boards, your stakeholders would be your community members. I went back. I don't know if this was my slide or not, but in any event, some other ways to provide, to do that consultation would be using the data that's provided through reporting from the local detachment, demographics, crime trends, and then from the priorities, your detachment commander will develop the objectives. So key here would be, for example, if we use speeding, let's say, you may note that there's a concern with traffic and speeding issues. How the RCMP operationalizes that priority will be up to them. They would set measures and targets and develop work plans, and then has a responsibility to report back as to the progress. So as I mentioned, there's that reporting, which will be key. They will also report up on those priorities through their district policing officer and through the division's annual performance plan process. And then also highlighting as well that detachment commanders can also provide additional information and education about their policing service. That could be something we've seen as of late was body-worn cameras. The team that works on that for the RCMP in the province has gone out to a lot of boards and councils to provide an overview of how that will work. Anything else that's required, whether it's a tour of headquarters, I know many municipalities have taken advantage of that in the past. That's always available and can be organized through the detached commander, or even myself. I can help connect municipalities with the folks there to organize those kind of activities. I'm not going to get into this. We already kind of went over that. That's the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission. Their website is there. Phone and complaints not currently supported, but as I mentioned, your first point of contact, if possible, or if that person is comfortable, would be with the local detachment. And that would be it.
Thank you, ladies, for your presentation. I'd just like to say that East Hants has had a wonderful relationship with the RCMP. We have already met this year, set out, to look at priorities for this. A lot of things that you've mentioned, we've had in place for quite some time. This presentation is really good for the newer members, and it's a review for the older folks I mean that in a respectful thing, the older people that have been around for quite a while. So now I'm going to open up the floor for questions with regard to the presentation. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I have some notes. I'll ask the first question. On your 90-day order, which could affect property or residence, would the owner be able to access the property for care to look after whether the power stayed on or there wasn't any damage from pipes freezing and whatever, or?
Yeah, so each situation is very different. So for example, if we're working with a property owner to evict some tenants, for example, because they're leasing that property, that's a condition that we can work with through the Director of Public Safety, i.e. myself. So that was what we went through with the Highland Motel, is they didn't want to shut down for a number of reasons. And that was because they were renting some long-term spaces to individuals, and also they're obviously the stop place before you get on the Newfoundland Ferry. So they didn't want to have a shutdown completely so that people didn't have access to housing. So we worked with them to impose conditions rather than a full shutdown. So the full shutdown is kind of on the spectrum of things that we can do. However, where each situation is so different that we'd have to work directly with that unique situation to determine what's best for the community, but also for that property.
Okay, thank you. Your provincial firearm officer or office, when the federal government puts out a ban list of firearms, I go through that department?
So I am the Chief Firearms Officer for Nova Scotia, actually. So we must follow the federal regulations and or legislation that is put through, because we are administering the Federal Firearms Act here in Nova Scotia. The collection of firearms, for example, that was subject to that ban is completely separate from our office and is left with police agencies directly. So that has been completely separate, but we are subject to the same pieces of legislation that the federal government kind of imposes.
And my last one is, if the public makes a complaint and they're not satisfied with the answer or reply, it goes to CERT,
Under which mechanism? Under the CRCC?
and then, yes, and then it goes, if they're not satisfied there, does it go to CRCM?
So if the public makes a complaint to the CRCC, for example, the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission, there is a number of different mechanisms that they can work through, and that could be informal resolution. I believe there's also an appeal process if they are not satisfied with the outcome of that investigation as well.
Okay. Would the last step be CRCM? Is that
CRCC.
CRCC? Is there a timeline to get a reply back to the public? Is the last part of my question, since
Go ahead. It's outside of our purview.
Well, okay, you guys, it's better if I run it up here, okay, than you pressing the buttons there, because it's, there you go.
Okay, just two things I want to address. So I know you mentioned CERT as well. So that would, they have a, you could perhaps speak more to that, but they have a completely separate mandate. They would not so much deal with complaints per se. However, a complaint could fall within their jurisdiction, right? Where you're dealing with serious injury, death, or, police misconduct. As for the complaints, yes, as Tracy mentioned, after the CRCC, there is a dispute mechanism there that can be further reviewed. But beyond that, I believe that's the end of those formal mechanisms.
okay. Thank you. That's all,
Anything further, Councillor Mitchell?
That's all, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Miriam?
Good morning. Yes, thank you for the presentation. And I think it was on slide 28 in your presentation. And it was just, it's not a huge point. It was just something out of curiosity in preparing for this. It was a written policy, re-off-duty policing, and it relates to, it mentions every board shall establish a written policy respecting off-duty employment. I believe I read that. Did I misunderstand something?
So that, I wonder if that may be on the slide 27, perhaps.
Could be. It's with a lot of fine print. There it is. Yes.
Yeah, that's not applicable to the RCMP. That's likely for municipal police boards.
Okay.
So the RCMP, there would be off-duty employment policies that the RCMP would take care of. But in a policing function, you can't police outside of your RCMP role.
Okay. And that would be, as it relates to that would be an internal RCMP policy.
Correct.
In Ottawa
Yeah.
kind of thing. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Perfect.
Is that all, Councillor?
Yes. Thanks.
The warden has just informed me we have regrets from public member Dinsmore. He's unable to attend, so I just wanted to put that on the record. All right, seeing no one else, I do have a question. I'll turn it over to the chairperson. Just a short one. The Safer Communities Act. In your presentation, it almost came across into me as you wanted the word out, that it wasn't being utilized. Is that true? How is it being utilized? Or is it sparingly being utilized? Or, what's your take there?
We are definitely being utilized, that's for sure. We've had a number of different cases in this region in particular. So there are 3 investigators who are dedicated to kind of what we're calling the central zone. Tim Mills is one of them, Sean Mason is another, and Mark McNeil is the third in this region. They all have their own separate regions as well. Definitely spread the word, because we do understand there is concerns in communities specifically around drug use and properties being used for the distribution, sale, or consumption of drugs. So just another formal mechanism for you or your community to have kind of in their back pocket. There's oftentimes we get referrals from the police as well. And it kind of goes back and forth in that way. But we're definitely being utilized, but definitely want to get the word out as well to kind of give you another tool in your tool belt.
All right, fine, and I understand that's great. But we should be advising the person that has the complaints to first access the RCMP office first? Should we do that? Or could directly go to there?
No, you can directly come to us unless there's something criminal in nature. So I'll give you two examples. First one is your neighbor has a bunch of needles on the lawn. You live next to a school, you know, you see people coming and going all hours of the night. There's been no police presence there because there hasn't been anything criminal in nature. Example number one, come directly to us. That's absolutely no problem. Example number two, same situation, needles on the lawn, you live next to a playground. However, that neighbor is now on the front step shooting off their handgun. Totally different kettle of fish. So situation number two, absolutely call the local police of jurisdiction, 911. Situation number one, you can absolutely call us, and in the course of our investigation, if we do find anything criminal in nature, we always refer back to the local RCMP or municipal police to kind of have that conversation. When we are conducting our investigation, the first step is a risk assessment, so they must identify who's in the property, what has the property been used for, what have been the flags. They often call the local police as well and say, hey, I've got a file on 123 Main Street, anything I need to know before I start my investigation. There's many times that the police will say, whoa, no-go zone, because we're already working an operation on that property or the individuals that are inside. So we work in conjunction with the police to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes. However, again, this is a more kind of formal mechanism for the non-criminal side of drug use sometimes. So again, two different situations that warrant kind of a police call or an us call. But of course, if you tell us anything on that initial intake call that is kind of, you know, questionable or criminal in nature, we'll always tell you call the police, and or we'll make the call to the police ourselves.
Yeah, so I was wondering, you know, would somebody be stepping on RCMP's toes if they went to there? And I think you've clarified that. And this is totally anonymous, there's no way that the person that's being complained about can find out who the complainant is.
No, so for
Jesus Christ.
What? What was that? Okay, we'll carry on.
So when they're conducting their investigation, they will use video surveillance. In that video surveillance, sometimes they will ask to install in the complainant's property. However, there are 3 people in the world ever who see that video: my investigator, myself, and our lawyer. That video is not subject to court. Only affidavits are subject to the court. The police will never see that video. The complainant will never see that video. So they will not know kind of where that video came from. The purpose of that is to protect the complainant's identity, because if we're parking a surveillance vehicle in their driveway, or we're using their Ring doorbell footage, or then it identifies where they are. So we never, ever disclose that information.
Thank you very much for that answer. All right, seeing no one else left to, Danielle.
Thank you. Just one additional piece I wanted to highlight that wasn't in the slide specifically. The province is working with the Canadian Association of Police Governance to provide a more in-depth training, particularly around consultation and priority setting. We're hoping to have that out hopefully later this year. But along with that, the province has obtained a membership with CAPG, an umbrella membership, if you will, that is extended to all police advisory boards and municipalities that are policed by the RCMP in the province, which allows access to their webinars at a reduced rate, their learning portal, which includes other types of training, reference information is just a treasure trove of information. So if your municipality is not yet already a part of that, please reach out to me and I can help facilitate access to the CAPG portal.
All right, thank you for that. And seeing nothing further, I will thank you for your presentation and further training. I imagine Chair Lee will set it up on our request. Thank you. Next will be the RCMP quarterly report. Staff Sergeant Balamacida and Sergeant Scott McCrae. Okay, who'll be taking this? You, Mike?
I'll start off, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
You can just skip that agenda slide. I realize it's missing a few things. So HR update is where I'll start off. So the municipality pays for 28 positions. Currently, 28 out of those 28 positions are occupied. However, only 24 of those positions are roadable. We have one administratively reassigned duty member, 2 duty-related injuries, 1 parental leave, 2 awaiting transfers in. I know it doesn't add up to the number that I said before. It's because we've brought in reservists to help bridge the gap. So we currently have 3 reservists filling 2 full-time positions. Additional resources that we do have on the ground, and we draw on them once in a while. We have 2 provincial street crime enforcement unit members and 1 provincial dog service handler. I'm going to provide you a little bit of an update with regards to the 2 civilian positions that you've funded. One of them is a court liaison officer, added to the ranks in June 2024. All court functions in and out are now being routed through this single point, as you guys can appreciate. There was probably quite a bit of training, despite the fact the person that we brought in had a very vast knowledge of the court system. Knowledge of the police system was needed to be learned in order to bridge the gap between court and police. The addition of this position has virtually eliminated the requirement for our frontline police officers to spend hours assembling court files, swearing informations, and handling disclosure requests, etc., with the end result being our members being more readily available. In addition to this, there's now an extra layer of assurance, consistency, and efficiency added to the court flow. I'll add one anecdotal comment to that is we've got a new Crown prosecutor for East Hants that has not worked under this system before and is a big fan of the single point of contact system in the sense that she doesn't necessarily have to look up every single police officer that is working on a file. She knows just to reach in to our court liaison officer who then figures out who's needed and what is actually needed. A lot of times, a lot of what is needed by the Crown prosecutor does not necessarily have to be done by the police officer investigating. So another efficiency found there. Another update to our administrative and exhibit support person. All administrative and exhibit functions are now flowing through this position, included but not limited to administrative tasks and operational files. So one of the discussions that was had before was how can this person assist with our frontline members writing reports. The reports themselves can't be written by this administrative position. However, linkages, scoring, administrative reviews of files that don't necessarily require a police officer to do are definitely fair game, and it's one of the efficiencies that we've found with this position. From this position, they're also managing the fleet and physical assets within the office, which from before, it's almost like with our cars flying by the seat of your pants with regards to this car's got to go in for service, this car's got to go in for service. Believe it or not, the amount of cars that we have runs quite thin. Some days, this position here is making sure we have the right amount of vehicles on the road and that their scheduled maintenance happens when they're supposed to be in for maintenance. The exhibit management is a huge component of it because prior to this person taking that position and being trained on handling exhibits, that was a regular member that was handling the exhibits. So we would literally be taking one of our police officers off the road to handle exhibits throughout the day. The tasks in there are movement and continuity of exhibits for court and movement and continuity of exhibits after seizure. Positions also created efficiencies with our detachment assistants as well. So as opposed to all our detachment assistants doing multiple things at the same time, they're siloing things off or bulking them so that there is an efficiency found within those things. Next slide. This is the slide, and Cheryl Lee can attest, it took me a little bit of time to get my report in because I was waiting for photographs. Ironically enough, I was waiting for a photograph of myself to come in because I didn't have one. King Charles III Coronation Medal, we had 3 members of East Hants RCMP that were awarded the King Charles Coronation Medal in recognition of their significant contributions and long-standing service to Canada and making a significant contribution to Canada or to a particular province, territory, region, or community in Canada, and have outstanding achievement abroad that brings credit to Canada. As I said before, there were 3 people named in there. The next slide actually has what they did to earn the awards. Corporal Collier, Constable Ouellette, and myself all earned the King's Coronation Medal. Operations, I'll pass it on to Sergeant McRae.
All the nitty-gritty, some of it more exciting than other stuff for sure. Thank you, everybody. Hope everybody's surviving the cold and the weather. And I wish an operations update would include Mother Nature making our roadways nice and clean and bare and not icy, but haven't figured out that power yet. So one of our more significant, similar to what happened in, well, different circumstances, but the commonality and the coordination of resources is the similarity between, it was fairly well publicized on January 30th, Mr. Maloney started in different jurisdictions, came into East Hants area, and then returned to Colchester County, where he was subsequently, as you can see with the picture, our guys with the big trucks and ERT members stopped him because he was driving on the wrong way on the 102 highway, which, of course, anybody that travels on our roadways caused quite a traffic disruption for a period of time, but good work by numerous officers, and it illustrates the ability of the RCMP to coordinate. You can see, and working with a DNR helicopter and multiple jurisdiction and members. We had upwards of 20, 30 members at least involved in this. And just to put it bluntly, a very dangerous individual off the road and under arrest and in custody. So it ended well. Was some risk to the public. We think it was more minor than the public was generating. But of course, once you go wrong way on a serious highway, that definitely upped the game. Going to our numbers, that I'll try to just give you a kind of a few highlights. You can look over that. You have access to them. The biggest thing is to what in this, which one's up there? Yeah, that one. Is you're going to see the 17% increase. So business is increasing. It's not doubling or tripling, but that 17% is substantial for the quarter. Still a big bulk of our workload is those traffic violations, as you're seeing 47%. That's up from I think every time I've come into these meetings, talked into the 30 to 40% range. It's up again, but again, talking with the major traffic highways that go through our district, that's not surprising, and the willingness of the public to call, which is a good thing. We do want the public calling us if they see things on our highways. Other criminal property crimes, all the rest of them are staying pretty consistent. I'll get you to flip the page there, please. I'd like to report now, as my boss here pointed out to me, because I like numbers and I like playing numbers games all the time. It's hard to, we talk trends, but it's hard to go without a yearly trend, but it was nice to see our violent crimes down anyway. You need more data to really to see how that trend's going to continue, or if we can call it a trend. Surprisingly to me, though, was the property crime. With the increase in population and density of population, I would have guessed that's kind of going to stay consistent or rise, but maybe it's the winter months. People are staying in. We'll see if that trend, again, when I talk to, we like to see a year's worth of data at least to try, before we speak too much, the trend word. But self-generated work, warnings are up because they're faster to deal with. SOTs are down because, like I talked about, the 17% increase in other calls for service, that's taken us away from road safety. Road safety is one of our APP, and it's one of my, I don't know, Mike will tell you, is I'm on it all the time. I believe in it, and I want my officers out there, visibility, and I want them stopping traffic. if they see something. But that 17% is taking them away from more of those frontline duties of traffic related and going to other calls for services that police officers go to. And there's a list of them that you can read there that we attend. I keep plucking away at that. We're seeing a direct impact, the ability for us to do enforcement. Now, we mentioned in one of our meetings before, we do invite our Northeast Nova Traffic Services Unit to come in, and often we do get a lot of feedback, because when they come into town or come into the municipality, you see them. You're not walking away with too many warnings when they're in town. And, you know, they're writing like 50, 70 tickets in a couple hours. So the business is out there if we have the officers on the road. But like I've said I think in the priority meeting, is that we're competing with every other municipality. So I do my best sales pitch. I want you in this area because my members are busy going to other calls. Help us out. But again, as illustrated in the ability to manifest or get a coordination of resources, we do our best to address that. And we'll flip that again, please. Street Crime Enforcement Unit. Just a couple, Mike spoke to them about their two provincial positions, but they often tag in other resources from other municipalities or within our own detachment. And a couple of highlights there is very serious operation of motor vehicle ×2 investigation that came out of it, robbery and other threats, breaching court conditions, mischief and careless use of firearms, prolific offender, breach conditional sentence orders, breach of probation, and failing to attend. It's kind of the focuses that they get into. They are working on some more, I liked hearing about the Safer Communities presentation here, but they're also working on some of these we can't speak too much of it in the public here, but they are working on some sources of complaints in some of the communities, and hopefully you'll see more of that come out to the public in the near future here. Of course, they were arrested a prolific offender for those thefts, possession, property obtained by crime, and we had an offender for a serious ration of what we're seeing, though, definitely coming out of the city mostly. There is some localized elements of it, is our business districts really getting hit by the shoplifting, the NSLC, the superstores, the Sobeys, and imagine the more smaller businesses, there's to a smaller extent. That is definitely something we're seeing. We're definitely working on. We've had our community policing officer meet with some of the managers. A lot of the policies are, fortunately, these businesses are directed from well above the localized thing, which is disappointing, but we work with it because we think we can tackle some of this a little better if we get corporate help. But of course, those managers are employed by their agency, and they're going to listen to their bosses. But it does take up a lot of our time. Just like what early on when I came into the position, we were talking about the gas and goes that they're known from the thing. We've seen a reduction in that. We've met with as many of the service providers as we could, showing what are you reporting, what needs to be reported. A lot of it's only reported for insurance costs. We're not chasing somebody around for $5 something you can press something to stop them from stealing, or we have to become efficient and utilize our resources appropriate. And of course, if it's a multiple offense, then that's a different story. Next, please. Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah. Our East Hants School Resource Officer, that's Constable Willette. He's in the schools, and they conduct those hold and secures, lockdowns, evacuation drills. You'll see a little picture on the next slide if you want about the little kids. I mean, that's a friendly picture, but basically they hide behind the door and they tuck them in there. He's doing awesome work with some of the food donations to local charities through his sports connections. And he's not the only one. He's a dedicated school resource officer, but I just want to put a little plug in for, we have several other members of the office that have done great charity work for the community with food banks and the schools as well. We're going to actually, Mike and I were discussing, we're going to push our officers as much again, because I'm another component. I love seeing the officers walk in the school. I don't get there enough myself, but certainly going to try to push them to do that. Next, please. And the community safety, I guess I, want me to just, yeah, keep going, my voice is rolling anyway. Same thing, Constable Burns, food bank, we've done that. Somebody might have dressed up in a little bear costume once in a while, but that's my best look, they told me, in a long time. So we'll do that. They're reading to the children, so they're doing all these little things, because the more the children can see the officers in a friendly, non-prioritized or crisis situation, the better. And an example was Preston doing that here, but we had several other members of Watch 3 do that recently as well. I'll probably pass it off to the boss here for the next one, because I know he has a few comments on this one.
Yeah, so the upcoming events, in keeping in line with the APP that Department of Justice was talking about and that we met about last month in community engagement, town halls. So town halls are a way for the RCMP to get into the community to hear directly from the community members, and a lot of times get to meet community members. There are some things that we will discuss and frequently ask questions at these town halls. Town halls have been happening with the RCMP across the country for quite some time, and again, a part of community engagement. That is tentatively set for the Kennetcook Fire Hall, March 25th from 6 to 7:30. And the reason I say tentative is we're waiting on confirmation that we can actually use the fire hall that day. East Hants Seniors Expo. This is not an us event. This is not an RCMP centric event. We've been invited to present on it by the municipality, which is great. Our community safety resource officer and one of our newly engaged members have some presentations and some booths geared towards seniors. The RCMP topics will include online scam awareness, and we're going to try to bring the COP program back and up and fully running in East Hants. Here we go. The next slide. So just to recap our 24-25 APP, that's the annual performance plan. It was great that DOJ brought it up, and it was fantastic to turn around and say that, yeah, we're already doing that. And that I'm really loving this municipality for that reason, because DOJ can come in and say, this is how you have to do it. And we can turn around and say, that's already what we're doing. So thanks, thanks very much. The previous APPs had visibility and response time, road safety, crime prevention, proactive policing. So keep in mind, the APP for the RCMP runs until March 31st. So I will be able to give a better update on how we did with this year's APP, but already looking forward and speaking to the proactiveness of this municipality and the cooperation with the police. We've already had a brainstorming session, and based on that meeting, we've come up with 4 new initiatives that will come into effect April 1st, 2025. Road safety is still there, community engagement, proactive criminal and drug enforcement, and improved data to support decision-making. So the CAO and I had a couple of chats back and forth with regards to this. The data and decision-making is so that the municipality can actually help support us a little bit better with resourcing, or we can be a little more accountable, as DOJ was saying, for how we're using the resourcing that we do have. So I'm more than happy to include that within the APP. Another upcoming event for the PAB, tentative date has been set for the RCMP headquarters tour, March 28th, 2025. The things that you'll see, digital forensics, the OCC, criminal investigation operations, the mobile command post, emergency response team and dog handler, explosives disposal unit, underwater recovery team, the clandestine lab, and always a favorite with this group is the training center. We were originally slotted to go the week before, but I didn't want you guys to see me training. I'm doing my block training the week before, so I don't want to see. I don't want you guys to see the old school techniques that this guy uses. So
Doesn't want to see him get hit with all the paintballs. It's not paintball.
Sorry for the
Dissemination.
abbreviated presentation, but in the interest of time.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the quarterly report. Several councillors on wishing to ask questions with regard to that report. First up would be Warden Rolston. I'm clicking it. Oh, I gotta take one of these guys off. There you go. No, you don't.
Thank you. Just wanted to go back for a few minutes to the town hall, and just for clarity for anyone in the public out there, anyone, I'm very pleased to say that this is not a municipal initiative. This is an RCMP initiative, and this is being set up and managed and everything by the RCMP. And I think, you know, it's incumbent on us to thank them for that, and to make sure the public understand that this is an RCMP initiative, and it's an opportunity for them to directly ask questions if they have any of the RCMP. So I just wanted to bring that forward in case people thought it was municipality having a town hall, and it's not. It's our RCMP having a town hall in the rural area. And second question that I have, if I might, I just want to refresh my brain, and maybe others do too, I'd just like to have a definition of administratively reassigned.
You're taking that?
Yep. It's our nice way of saying suspended.
Oh, okay, thank you.
A very polite way of saying suspended.
So if I could, following up to that, how long could an administratively reassigned position continue before it is replaced?
So the answer that I received from that from staffing, so I've already asked to replace that body, and the answer that I keep getting for these things is that they physically hold that position until they are back to work and can be fully reassigned to another position, or are dismissed from the RCMP. And I'm not in a position to comment.
No, I understand
The
that.
investigation of the suspension is not even being done out of our office. That's done by a completely separate unit outside of our office.
Would not expect you would be able to at all. But I guess the concern of myself, and probably I assume council, is how long we're going to be paying for this position, you know, within our RCMP detachments, while you folks are down a body that you can put to work out there. And, you know, that's certainly,
You and I are asking for the same things.
okay.
You want your body, I want my body.
Yeah, thank you
The
very
answer
much.
is we don't know. It's a process, but we both want it sooner than later.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Is that all, Warden?
That's it.
Next up, Councillor Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two comments or two questions. Could you comment on your working relationship between the RCMP and the fire service?
Operation.
Good, bad, or whatever? What do you hear?
I've heard, I've been in the community 21 plus years, plus in the RCMP a lot longer than that, and recently in this role. I think it's a great working relationship with, I would say, 98% of the services. There are individuals, just like within the community at large, that for whatever reason we may have had business relations besides the social or the working relations that sometimes put a few bumps into that. But for what I think we have a great working relationship. Should our members get out into those fire services meetings and training nights to show and meet them more? Absolutely. We've been pushing that for a long time. And we welcome that opportunity. But to your question, Councillor, I think it's good. I haven't heard anything to the negative. So.
That's what I heard too. Nothing, very positive on our end, and we appreciate working with the RCMP and being partners. My last one deals with Code Black. When you evacuate and relocate, do the students have a warm, safe place to go, especially in the winter?
Yeah, that's part of the Code Black procedures. So these aren't just thrown on them in advance. So they're planned out before, and what's going to happen in a code black, a code blue, or a code green is practiced. That's what you're seeing here. These are the actual go days for the practice and assessment days. So to answer your question, yes, they are brought to someplace safe. If there is no place close to be safe, they'll make arrangements, or they'll tabletop it to say that, yeah, we'll bring in some buses, or we'll bring in some resources to keep our students warm.
Is there a time frame when code black is issued to get them relocated?
It's a, so with the code black, I guess it's a on-ground decision, I guess, as to whether or not the threat is inside that school and we have to get them outside of the school. Generally speaking, it's not the big thing, or if there is an emergency of some sort within the school, a gas leak, explosive device or something, and they have to get them out of the school, that's why they practice these, and this is where you have to go, and we'll do the head count from a safe distance and usually from a place of shelter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, pardon, I got a bit of a cold here. First of all, I'd like to congratulate yourself and the two members on their King Charles Awards. I think
Thank you.
well deserved. Fellow councilor here mentioned about the fire, RCMP. We had a house fire in Enfield on Friday night. We had 3 members there that stayed all night long. We were able to access their phones because ours were out of service, so that went very well. It's a positive for them, and it was not a pleasant night out there. 2 questions. How are the members liking the body cameras?
I'll go
Do you want to
first.
speak to this?
Yeah. I couldn't wait till we got these body worn cameras, and you can see for the council, that's Mike and I are both got them, and they're flashing green. They're not recording. They're just ready to go if we need them. For me as a supervisor and also a working member is within, what was it, maybe less than 12 hours, 14 hours, we shut down a public complaint, because what the public tells us and what the camera tells us, not always the same thing. So that's great. The accountability on the members, I think, and the professionalism should, I think we're professional now, but it'll give that little extra maybe thought when you're up to the side of the window or whatever. And the public seems to be also receptive of it. They see the officers wearing them. We get a lot of questions, but that's awesome, because that when people question you and want to talk to the officers, that's community engagement 101. Like, even if it's talking about the camera, they're talking. So when people talk, you learn each other, and that's a win. So the answer to it, we welcome, and we're finding great things. We're learning the process of having to move it towards the court process. There's always a learning curve there. A lot of material and redactions, because you got to get things off the cameras that are private and stuff. But they're awesome so far.
Glad to hear that. Now, I know you're more visible in the community a lot lately. Your last meeting we had here, you were talking about the sportsplex and attending certain hours. How did that work out, or can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment. I actually went out one night just to see what it was all about and enjoyed a hockey game in the meantime. I guess that happened by accident. When our guys are available, they are guys and gals. When they are available, they do a walkthrough of the event. Essentially speaking, the way I try to add efficiency to our members is through our supervisors. And I tell the supervisors, if they drive by the sportsplex and the parking lot is busy, that means there's a lot of people inside. In our model of community engagement, and even if you go right back to a cop to pop model, a police officer to a population model, if there's a lot of cars in the parking lot, there's a lot of people inside, that's where the population for East Hants is. We should be there and be present. Now, having said that, I go by the rule of the 80-20. 20% of the people sometimes need 80% of our service. So we can't always be where all the people are. Calls for service pending. Having said that, I really encourage them, not just at the sportsplex, to get out and use their feet. Get out everywhere and use their feet.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and to our presenters, thank you for that. Very interesting, as per usual. Question for you about some of the crime stats that were presented. And I don't know if you can go back to that slide, but Specifically, it's pointing on a couple of the heftier increases year over year for fraud and for theft under $5,000. And, I guess in looking at those, kind of my eyes go to the bigger increase ones. My question is, was 24, 25 an especially bad year? Was it, were the increases attributable to, one or two players? Or, I'm curious if you were to, even anecdotally, if we went back over a slightly longer period of time, like a 5-year, could we say that, well, 23, 24 was uncharacteristically low, and in fact 24, 25 numbers were more consistent with a 5-year average?
So I can speak to that. So the hard thing with turning around and saying trend-wise, there's a lot of different variables, right? So with my science background, I'll turn around and tell you, the more variables we throw in there, the harder it is to say it's attributable to one thing. So you throw in from 2020, when COVID started, and we're out of COVID roughly 2022, 2023. There's something else that also happens in East Hants, it's a population boom. And something else also happened is there's an economy drop. So can I attribute it to any one particular thing? No. But can I say trend-wise, what we are seeing, like you're looking at fraud and you're looking at theft, these are crimes in which, property crimes in which people are trying to line their pockets with things, right? I can't help but see a correlation of somewhat to the economy and to unemployment, perhaps, or the ability to afford certain things. And I'm not defending the actions of people who commit crimes. However, it is definitely one of those things, and it's one of those things that on an individual scale, when you're looking at the thefts, not so much the frauds, but you're looking at the thefts and getting out there and speaking with the people that are committing the thefts and dealing with the charges, you do see quite a bit of the have to steal, and it's an unfortunate thing for the shoplifting type of thing, and that's what I look at as soon as I see theft under 5,000. I look at majority of it's shoplifting. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
It does. No, that's great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, just one question I didn't ask. Business parks, how is things in the business parks in here?
So we were asked this morning if we can quantify that. No problem in quantifying it. Qualitatively, I could say business as usual is all I can really say for business parks. Just like the guys are encouraged on their time in between calls. If you're going to write a report, why not write it in a parking lot of the Sobeys? Why not write it in the parking lot of the Superstore? Go out to Kennecook, write a report in the parking lot out there. Same thing for the business parks. I don't expect them to sit in the business parks, but at least take a drive through when things aren't moving in there. We should be the only thing moving in the business parks. Quantitatively, if I could park that, I should be able to give you some stats for next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
My only add-on, if I may, if it's okay, is because I attended some of these business park meetings, is the reporting aspect of it, which goes to the general population. We don't know about it. We can't qualify it or quantify it. When I attend the meeting one little while back in Mount Uniacke, they were talking about all kinds of crimes, and I'm like, we don't have those numbers. So that stuff has to be reported, because without the data, without the calls for service, it's very hard to do any of this with, like Mike said, with the variables. That is one of the variables. What is being reported? Like you have 1 and 1. It's like some crime doesn't get reported in some communities versus other communities are really quick to call the phone 5 seconds. But in relation to the question about the business parks, the patrols are being made. I'm not hearing much problems, but I'm more than confident if I attended another business park meeting, I'm probably going to hear more than what was reported. Does that make sense? That's my pitch. Just if it's happening, you got to report.
Any thought why they're not being reported? Insurance or something else?
That was one of it that came out of one of the meetings. They're worried about increased insurance rates. That was definitely discussed, 100%. And then avenues of policing the park or security, actually better word is security of the park as opposed to policing. I know they're hand in hand of a joint responsibility, but if you don't have the numbers to support, like you'll hear businesses come towards council saying, we have a problem. Well, what is your problem? Show me. You got to quantify things. We need more money for X security or X gates or X road work. It works in any department. You have to have the data in front of you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that's all.
Hard to hear, but anyway. I'd just like to echo Councillor Dixon's on behalf of the Police Advisory Committee. Congratulations on your King Charles medals to yourself and the two other members, and would you please pass that on, that we have extended congratulations to you. It's something to be very proud of.
Thank you.
Seeing nothing else, I thank you, gentlemen, for your quarterly report, and look forward to the next one, and hopefully everything will be done.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. All right, council members, or executive members, that brings us to the end of our agenda. And I'm gonna ask for a motion for adjournment to reconvene at probably 5 to 11 for Corporate Residential Committee with Councillor Sandergaard and Cole as the chair. Moved by Councillor McPhee, seconded by Councillor Dixon. All those in favor? Contrary of mine, motion carried. Once again, it's been a pleasure.
For the chair, I know that. Shoot. Where's mine? No, I've got one on my desk there. Keith's gonna get mine. Thank you. No, spilled it everywhere. Okay, folks, we're gonna call the Corporate and Residential Services Committee to order. I'll be looking for the approval of the minutes of January 21st, 2025. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Motion approved. First item on the agenda is 2025-26 capital budget, including the Sportsplex, with Jordan Boutzer and Alana Tapper. And not, okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, today I will be going over the new projects in the capital budget, as well as any existing projects that have been adjusted. I won't present every project from the document today, but staff will answer any questions that councilors may have. So this is a 5-year capital budget. This budget serves as the capital investment plan for the Canada Community Building Fund, also known as CCBF. Part of the requirement of CCBF funding is also that you do asset management to make sure that you have a good handle on when your assets need to be replaced. The whole purpose of providing CCBF funding to municipalities is to build sustainability and build capacity, which have historically been the key areas that municipalities have tended to struggle with. Projects proposed for 2025-26 through to 2029-2030 may include projects approved in prior years that are expected to continue beyond March 31st, 2025. Projects approved for further study in prior years that have not yet been actioned but are still proposed for study on a go-forward basis. New projects proposed to council for approval to commence in any of the years 2025-26 through to 2027-28. And new projects proposed to council for approval for further study to commence in any of the years 2025-2026 through 2029-2030. And note that any new projects for approval for further study must come back to council for approval to commence should the project need to proceed. So sources of funding in the capital budget include operations, reserves, external agencies such as CCBF, Housing Accelerator Fund, also known as HAF, and Municipal Capital Growth Program, also known as MCGP. These would all be examples of external agencies. And also debenture. And a note on debenture, our most recent borrowing rates from November 2024 are averaging around 3.45%. So we try to use reserves and or funding for capital projects. However, the default source of funding is borrowing or debenture. If we need to borrow, basically we need to come back to council. Staff cannot change any projects to the debenture source of funding without council approval, nor can staff increase debenture amounts. So here's a snapshot of our reserves at March 31st, 2024, which is now almost a year ago. This was first presented back in July when we looked at our annual report, and it was also brought up a few weeks ago in a budget meeting. But we'd just like to show this here to give council a general idea of where we're at with our reserves. So the total is 45 million here, and capital reserves make up 10.8 million of this. Capital reserves can only be used for capital projects. Water utility is 3.1 million. These are our depreciation reserves that are only to be used for water capital projects. The bulk of this is made up from our operating reserves, which is 29.1 million. Operating reserves, they can be used for operating and capital purposes. And lastly, our obligatory reserves at 2 million. These are our sewer and water infrastructure reserves as well as open space. So these reserves in particular, they're collected in fees for specific purposes, such as water and wastewater projects that would add capacity to the system. So here's an example of a capital project template. New projects start with a 25 project number. This particular project falls under Parks, Recreation, and Culture. It is a one-time project that was presented as part of the business plans, that being a new playground and park in Lance. You can see budget details under annual gross expenditures, whether a project is previously approved from a prior capital budget or council motion, approval sought, or approval sought for further study. And then below that would be the funding details. Each project has information in the bottom section. There's a project summary section to provide insight as to what a project may entail. There's project objectives or deliverables. Each project includes a section which East Hants Key Strategy does this project align, and this will ensure that the project aligns with council's strategic plan. Each project, at the beginning of the capital budget document, there is a capital project summary. And that would be found starting on page 5, and page 5, 6, and 7, they all relate to 25, 26 capital projects. So in this table, we are presenting new projects that are approval sought. And if you have the PDF or printed version of the capital budget in front of you, you can follow along as the page numbers for each project are listed in the left column of each table. There are 32 new projects this year. Several of the new projects reoccur each year, such as business park development, streetlights, hydrants, and water meters. Looking at the table, Project 25003, Uniac Business Park Entrance Improvements, is seeking $500,000 funded from special reserves. Project 25007, Paley Brook Community Park, which was just used as an example on the previous slide, is seeking $170,000 funded also from special reserves. Projects 25011 and 25012 are both projects for the Lloyd E. Matheson Center. One is a building automation system seeking $250,000, and the other is mechanical upgrades, which are essentially heat pumps for the facility, and that one is seeking $350,000. The two projects are both funded from building special reserves for the East Hants portion, and for the remainder, it is recoverable from tenants through the lease agreements.
Excuse me, Jordan, before you continue, would you like for councillors to ask questions during the presentation or wait until the end?
Yeah, we can take questions throughout.
Okay, so just going to start with Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just going back to the reserve slide there with the mason jars. When somebody from the general public would look at a $29.1 million reserve in the operating, how would that be comparative to municipalities similar size to us? Are we in the ballpark, or are we low, are we high, or what would we be there? Because I think it's very important, because people may say, why don't we pull the sum from to lower the tax rate? So I'd just like to see where we stand with regard to other municipalities.
Through the chair, I would say I don't think we have that information currently, but I think it would be something we might be able to look at if we were to, let's say, go through other municipalities' annual reports. We might be able to see or ask around, but I would say that's probably something we could come back to you with some information on.
I would be very interested to see a comparison rate, to see if we're, low, high, or what we are. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Councillor Mitchell. Thank
you, Madam Chair. Project 25-013 Sportsplex roof replacement and reseal. Is that the complete roof for Keith Miller Arena, the new part, or?
Through the chair, I would default to our Director of Parks, Rec, and Culture for that one.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you. Through the chair. That does include repair replacement to the two arenas. So there's about 9 different sections to the roof, and 8 of the 9 sections require work of some degree to either the actual membrane, seals, et cetera. So it does include the roofs for both arenas.
So with the section, that one section, would that replace and reseal too, or just the 8?
8 of the 9. So there is actually one minor section towards the back that actually isn't over the rinks that is in quite good condition. So it doesn't require immediate work at this time.
And 25016, the parking lot replacement, is that going to be an ongoing project, or would that be something that might be done in the summertime when there's less traffic?
Through the chair, provided council approves the budget for it, it does require some investigation, but the intent would do sort of, I guess, a mill and pave after we do some geotechnical just to understand the condition underneath the pavement. But the idea would be to do that when it would be less disruptive to the operations, so likely within construction season in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jordan, about the reserves again, the water utility, you said mostly depreciation. Can you explain more on that? Like I know from a business standpoint, like when you do depreciation for building and equipment, there's money you don't have, but probably you get. I don't know how that works with municipal budget.
Through the chair, yes. So I think, yes, I have it up on screen here. That 3.1 million, that is all the depreciation reserves. So we have one other source for water capital projects would be under the obligatory reserves on this slide. So the water infrastructure reserves, we can utilize that one too. But the 3.1 million there, that is all the depreciation reserves.
So what do you mean by depreciation? Like how can you explain it? Like in the
Might have to default to CAO on this one.
So is it to make my question clear? Is it actual money, or is that money
Yes.
that you use like to depreciate when you do your?
Through you, Madam Chair, the depreciation in the water utilities, it's the same concept as depreciating your assets as a business, with the exception that the water utility has to fund that depreciation and set the money aside.
Oh, okay.
So that's the difference.
yeah,
It is calculated like assets, and there's a formula to calculate
I
how much
thought
you set
it's
aside.
only like depreciation and no money in.
No, water utilities have to fund their depreciation.
Oh, okay.
Municipalities and businesses do not.
Okay, thank you.
Next to speak is Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff. Could you expand on Roxy's kitchen revitalization and the parking lot replacement? I can understand roof replacement, you know. I just want to make sure that maybe, I've seen a lot of fry joints in different rinks around the province, and I'm just wondering, is it really needed right now, this year, or what? Same thing with the parking lot. Can that be put off, or does this have to be done in this budget cycle?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll address the Roxy's kitchen piece first. Certainly, as staff have transitioned since May of 2024, we have noted some what they feel are deficiencies, and I believe this has actually come about in conversation with insurance providers, et cetera, but they do recognize that the hood system that takes away grease vapors, et cetera, is likely not, I wouldn't say that it's not up to code, but I would say it's certainly deficient. So there is some concern about that and just ensuring that grease vapors and all of that are actually exhausted from the facility correctly. Also, in working with the staff that operate Roxy's, they are noticing a lot of the equipment is not commercial grade. Roxy's Cafe is becoming incredibly busy, and it's just really not set up. It's set up more with homeowner style equipment versus the commercial grade, but certainly, the grease vapor, exhaust fan, et cetera, that really has to fall under, there's like a National Fire Prevention Act code that they're referencing. So certainly it does require investigation and some repair and improvement. Parking lot, when we initially discussed this project, we debated if we should have it wait But as we've become familiar with the facility and seeing how busy it is, the parking lot is in very poor condition. So I would suggest that it is something that does require some attention now before it continues to get worse. But certainly there's an investigation portion to that just to ensure that we do everything correctly.
So what I'm hearing that Roxy, with regard to Roxy's, you still feel it may fall under code and it's up to code, but these are being pushed because of insurance purposes?
I didn't, sorry, Counselor, I didn't hear a portion of that question.
With regard to Roxy's, did you not say that it still may be up to code, but it's being pushed by the insurance purposes?
Through a conversation with their insurer, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, through a conversation with the insurer, certainly we want to explore the National Fire Prevention Code further, but we do feel that the exhaust fan does require replacement and extension over the actual grills and fryers.
Like, I'm trying to get at what you're basing that off of, because have they insurance been out to look at this? Or are we just going by conversation? Or you're just going by, we don't think it's up to code? Where are you basing exactly this off?
The conversation started with the insurer, and then that directed us to the National Fire Prevention Act codes.
But has it been inspected by someone who is proficient in that field?
We have occupancy and fire inspection, yes.
In-house or an outside source?
That's done through our municipal fire inspector, and that's in-house, but they would treat us as they would any other business.
Okay, I just want to be cautious. If it's not under code, yeah, I can see we can, try to get it to meet code. I just want to make sure that we're not doing too much, too fast, and because there's a cost to the taxpayer with regard to doing too much, rather than putting it over a period of time. So I just want to make sure that these are have to do, and not possibly could be put off till the next budget cycle, i.e. the parking lot. I haven't seen the parking lot, but those are my concerns. Like, are we doing stuff too fast, too soon? Thank you.
Speak is Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Just following up, I would just comment that I have great faith that our fire inspectors are, looking according to code, and that I know it's costly to do this, but the cost would be much higher should we have a fire and our insurance not cover us. And that facility, the entire thing, the cost would be unimaginable. So with that, I had just a quick question on something entirely different, which was sidewalks, Enfield. I've lost the page now. 21-025, $5 million plus project, $370,000 from special reserves and debenture for the rest. And I'd just like to say that debenture, that's an urban service rate debenture, or when it comes, I wasn't just sure how the resurfacing and that, so I'm told it is the urban service rate, so I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that correctly. Thank you.
Next to speak is Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff. Project 24-12, which would be the Mount Uniacke Streetlight project.
Okay.
The sources of funding are external HAF and external CCBF. I'd like to see those numbers changed. I'd like to see possibly an extra 15,000 in HAF, reducing the CCBF funding by 15,000. Just because when we talked about the flagpoles, HAF funding is not available for that. It can be used to relocate the cenotaph in Shubenacadie, but it cannot be used for the flagpoles. So what would happen here is $15,000 more would go into the streetlights, and then the CCBF for Mount Uniacke would be used to fund the flagpoles. That's the reason for the change in funding. So I'm going to make that motion.
Okay. On before the motion, Counselor Dixon.
Thank you. Through the chair to, back to, the parking lot for the Sportsplex. On the weekend, they had, quite a big hockey tournament and the rugby tournament, and parking was an issue. Is there any consideration that could be made to expand the parking prior to doing the work on the parking lot?
Thank you, through the chair. We have considered that, but at this time, we're really just looking at recapitalizing what we have. The idea would be is where are we going to put the parking lot or additional parking spaces, and until we sort of determine that, we would just look at actually recapitalizing what's there.
Because, is there any way that we could look at the park, adding to it?
Through the chair, I think we'd have to explore sort of the land or available land, because one section closer to the new interchange, there's a large portion of that actually belongs to the provincial highway piece, so we don't have the opportunity to go further there. There is the gravel section that's closer to the skate park, but again, I think at this point, we're just looking at recapitalizing the actual pavement that's there and then relining.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Musa.
Not to the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
I move that the funding sources for project 24-012 be $315,000 from the Housing Accelerator Fund, external CCBF $105,000. I so move.
Warden Rolston.
So just for clarity, that's simply changing $15,000 worth of funding, correct? Thank you.
Okay, motion's made. We'll be looking for a seconder.
He
Oh,
seconded it.
Seconded, okay. Seeing no further discussion,
Question?
question's been called, we'll go to the motion. Go to the vote. Okay, so the vote has passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, you can continue on, thank you. Oh, sorry, we've just got Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going back to the Roxy's Cafe, like, I know I run a business similar to that, and I know how strict the fire inspector when he comes to my business. So I was wondering if we treat like the nonprofit organization the same as businesses or no? Like, it's not good if we don't treat them like business, because if something happened, they're in deep trouble. Like, I know the system have to be updated every few years, and I went through it so many times, and I wonder if we are strict with, like, for the safety of the buildings and the people that go there. Do you treat them like commercial or different treatment? So.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can assure you that the not-for-profit organizations are inspected similarly to businesses, and they're held to the same standards.
Okay, good, because for the Sportsplex going for that long without noticing what's going on, like, that's why I asked my question. I want to make sure that everybody is treated the same for the safety of everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like a little clarification on Councillor Rhino's comments. The Roxy kitchen revitalization, the hood is part of that, but not all of the 320,000. That also includes the replacement of cooking surfaces and grills, all that too, does it at the same time?
Thank you. Through the chair, yes. So certainly the hood, ventilation, et cetera, exhaust is a portion of that, but it's also looking at commercial ranges and commercial refrigeration units. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and that seems reasonable considering that equipment's probably, what, 35 to 40 years old? Probably the original equipment, is it?
I wouldn't think that it's that old, but certainly it's less commercial range and it is older.
No, 20, even if it's 20, that's, yeah, for a non-commercial. Very good, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I know we've gone over 3 of them now, but I did want to specifically speak that there are 6 Sportsplex projects in this capital budget. So as you can see, 3 of them on this slide. We've talked about them a little bit. The roof replacement and reseal, 1.5 million. That one we have funding set as a venture. And then the other 2, the Roxy's Kitchen and the parking lot. These 2 projects, we do have Sportsplex reserves set aside for those projects. Project 25006 is the Walton Slipway. And this one is on page 36 of the document, but it is not in this table because there's no approval sought component. The project has been previously approved by council motion in July 2024 for $100,000 to be funded from CCBF. Similarly, project 25009 is the Shubenacadie public parking lot. It's on page 39 of the document and is also not in the table for the same reason. A council motion was passed in December to approve $500,000 coming from Housing Accelerator Fund. And then finally, it'd be the 4th of the 6 projects for the Sportsplex. Project 24043, it's the Sportsplex revitalization. It's been approved by council motion for $835,332 and is funded mostly by reserves with $50,000 rink revitalization funding as well. And this particular project is found on page 35 of the budget. And I believe it's also been posted to this agenda. Project 25017, construction and demolition landfill cell, is a approval sought for 2526. Funding for this project is debenture and is spread over 2 years, meaning that the borrowing will not take place until 2026-27 or later. 25018, Waste Management Center well decommission, is $45,000 with funding from special reserves spread over 3 years at $15,000 each year. In wastewater, the largest project that we are bringing forward in this capital budget is project 25019, the Brookside Wastewater Revitalization for $12,615,000. So for this one, we have applied for Canadian Housing Infrastructure funding for 50% of the project costs, with the other 50% being debenture. And note that this project will only go ahead in its current form upon successfully obtaining the 50% funding. Project 25020 is the exterior access for the Milford Wastewater Treatment Plant. This one is seeking $30,000 from special reserves. And project 25021, lift station pump upgrade, is a new project each year in the budget, and it is based on a lift station plan over a number of years. So for 2025-26, this is $73,000 from reserves. In the water utility, notable new projects for approval sought are project 25028, which is water tower mixers in Elmsdale and Shubenacadie for $40,000 from our depreciation reserves. This is approval sought in 2026-27. And then we have project 25030, water tower renewal Lance phase 2. This one has debenture funding for $370,000 and it is approval sought in 2027-28. So new projects for further study. We have project 25010, Enfield Walkways. This one is further study in 25-26 for $100,000 to be funded from CCBF and external grants. We previously went over 4 of the 6 Sportsplex projects. The other 2 are found here. They have a further study component. So we have project 25015, security, and 25025, rubber floors. The security project is funded for $250,000 from Sportsplex reserves, and this amount is approval sought in 2025-26. The remaining $650,000 of this project is further study in 26-27 and 27-28, and we have this funding as debenture. The rubber floor project is further study in 26-27 and also has debenture as the funding source. 25029, Rodden RCMP roof replacement, is further study for $27,000 in 2027-28, funded from special reserves. And project 25031, Elmwood Park and Walkways, is $300,000 further study in 2028-29. Projects 25027 and 25032 are both sanitary sewer replacements in Shubenacadie and are both being recommended to be replaced at the same time as the water main counterparts, which are both existing projects in the budget. Those existing water main projects are 21029 and 21031, which we'll see in a little bit. So these two sanitary sewer projects, they're found on page 82 and 104 of the document, and also shown in this table. And the project descriptions reference the relevant water main projects as well as the cost if the sanitary sewer replacements were to go ahead on their own. The Highway 2 sanitary sewer replacement is shown in the budget as 4.7 million, but would be 5.6 million if not done at the same time as the water main. And for Mill Village Road, it's 1.6 million, but it would be 1.9 million if it were to be done on its own. Project 25022 is the regular replacement of water meters. This one is seeking 37,500 in 25-26. And then 75,000 further study in each of the next 4 years. And project 25023 hydrants is seeking 60,000 in 25-26, and then 70,000 further study in each of the 4 years after that. So this slide and the next details any change in dollar amount for existing projects. Project 21001, LEMC office space reconfiguration, 25,000 approval sought. And this is based on CAO and director needs for the respective departments. And this extra 25,000 would bring the total project cost to $90,000. Project 24007, Uniac Business Park pylon sign. This one has moved from further study to approval sought with no change in dollar amount. 10,000 has been previously approved. It makes the total project cost $90,000. Project 24009, Elmsdale Business Park Phase 7, is another of our largest projects in this budget. Previously, this was $8.8 million further study, but it is now being moved to approval sought, and the amount has increased to $11.82 million. $180,000 has been previously approved by council motion and makes the total project $12 million funded by debenture. Project 21004, transit implementation, is 2.5 million further study. 650,000 of this can be funded from our HAF, with the remainder being debenture. 24014, Lakelands Regional Park. The further study amount has been increased from 165,000 to 600,000 due to the expanded scope of the project, which now includes picnic shelters, sports courts, parking area, and a walking loop in addition to the playground. Project 21022, Lighthouse relocation, has been increased to 200,000 further study for the Burnt Coat Lighthouse. This is an estimate based on an anticipated relocation at some point within the next 10 years. And we previously discussed this one, but project 21025, the Enfield sidewalks, these are moving from further study to approval sought in this budget. No change in the dollar amount. The source of funding, as we mentioned, is special reserves for $370,000 in 25-26, and the remainder in 26-27, the $4.78 million, that is debenture. And just to clarify once again, this project is under the urban service rate. Project 24033, Lance Lagoon Sludge Management Infrastructure, was $2 million further study in the prior year capital budget. In December 2024, $950,000 was approved by council motion, and the further study amount has been changed to $1.55 million. This means that the total project has increased by $500,000. It was $2 million, and now it's gone up to $2.5 million. 16011, lift station upgrade, Highway 277. The dollar amount is unchanged, but now it is approval sought in 26-27 rather than further study. Project 21029, water main renewal, Highway 2 Shubenacadie. The approval sought amount has been increased by $908,000 due to market conditions. And this project and 21031, these were the ones that were previously mentioned as being the counterparts to the new sanitary sewer main projects. 21031 has been increased from 1.03 million to 1.6 million, but this one remains in further study. 24031, Shubenacadie Water Tower Renewal, has been increased by $39,000. Its approval sought in 26-27 and is based on market conditions. And then project 24039, the Enfield Water Tower Renewal, the further study amount has been increased from $850,000 to $1.5 million. This one is not set until 2028-29. As I mentioned, it is further study. So that concludes the capital budget presentation. We would be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay, first to speak is Warden Ralston.
Thank you. Just want to confirm that anything that is approved in this 5-year capital budget under the heading approved for further study cannot be actioned or brought forward in any way without coming back to council first.
Through the chair, that is correct. Anything in the further study, it is for council information, and it has to come back either in a future budget or by a council motion in a report at some point throughout the year. You will see it again.
Thank you. And just a secondary thing, not for this year or anything, but as I'm trying to go from here and find, when there are projects there, it's very clear what's a water utility project, because that is a separate heading. On the other ones, I wonder if somewhere we could just put a bracket USR, if it's an urban service rate project or something, somewhere in the table. So it just at a glance, you know, it's not on the general rate, you know, it's an urban service rate, and it just helps kind of keep track of those things a little bit. Anyway, much appreciated. That's all at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next to speak is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Deal with borrowing. When you go to a borrowing on the debenture, is there a limit? How much you can borrow?
Through the chair, the province does keep track of our financial condition indicators. One of those indicators is our debt service cost. So trying to remember, I think it's they have a specific calculation where if our debentures is more than 15% of a certain number, then that we would be in a category for them to watch. We have not exceeded that currently, but to give you the short answer, there is a limit to how much we could borrow. But I think if we were in conversation with the province and we were saying we have this debenture coming on and maybe some other ones coming off, then there's some leeway from them. It's not typical for them to say like, no, you can't do that because you're offside this 1 year.
Is there a dollar amount or just a percentage?
It's based on a calculation to come up with a percentage.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Deputy Warden McPhee.
Thank you, Chair. Just through you to staff. Part of my question was answered through the warden's question. It was about further study, but with the Sportsplex security, $250,000, that's money you're planning to spend this year to upgrade security. Could you just have some idea of what you plan to do or what that money's going to be spent on?
I would defer to our director of PRC for what the actual project entails, but I will just mention first that yes, the $250,000, that's approval sought. So by approving this budget today, you would be approving that amount. The rest of the project is sitting in further study. So that one would have to come back in a future capital budget. So I'll just speak to that funding details.
Thank you, through the chair. So the money that we would be looking to use this year, should council approve, would be to improve the CCTV. So we have very limited amount of cameras in the facility. Also door swipe systems and door access. There's really none of that. It's all key-based system, and as well as upgrading the alarm and security systems. So to be more in alignment with what we have, say, here at the LAMC and at the Aquatic Center, we would be looking to make those improvements. And then we did have a security audit done this past summer. That's where the rough total came from, so it is quite a large number. So that's why we would be looking to implement some of it, but a larger portion of it, it would be really beneficial for staff to have the time to really review and assess all of the other components of that security audit and just proceed really carefully with what we feel we had to do.
Okay, thanks. That's good.
Thank you. Well, I thank staff for a comprehensive presentation, and I've been following, in the document as I've had questions in my head by each project. Very easy to find the projects in the capital budget. Having said that, I'm going to move to recommend to council that the 5-year capital budget for the fiscal years 2025, 2026 to 2029, 2030 as presented be approved and adopted effective April 1st, 2025. Administration is given approval to proceed with the previously approved capital projects and those in the approval sought sections, subject to any conditions limiting such projects in previous motions of council or in policies of council. Should time permit, staff are authorized to embark on projects in this capital budget that require long-term pre-planning prior to April 1st, 2025. Projects approved for further study are approved in principle only. Amounts identified as approved for further study cannot be expended prior to presentation of a full report to council for consideration or approval through a future capital budget process. Where time permits, staff are given approval to proceed with approval sought projects from 2026-27 prior to April 1st, 2026. And that any projects approved in the 2024-25 capital budget not reflected as carried forward to the 2025-26 capital budget, but that are substantially committed at March 31st, 2025, shall be carried forward to 2025-2026 based on the remaining budget at March 31st, 2025. And that this 5-year estimate of capital spending form the Capital Investment Plan, CIP, as required by the federal and provincial government funding agreements, and that the water utility sections of this budget are permitted to stand alone as the East Hants Water Utility Capital Budget as required by the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board, UARB. And that staff be given authority to alter the sources of funding where necessary, but in no case shall the amounts to be debentured increase without prior approval of council. And that council seek ministerial approval for a temporary borrowing resolution, TBR, for any amounts in this capital budget under the debenture debt category of funding, and that pre-approval to borrow amounts in this capital budget under the debenture debt category of funding for a term not to exceed 25 years at a rate not to exceed 6.5%. So moved.
Moved by the warden, seconded by the deputy warden. Seeing no one left to speak. Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. Okay, and the motion has passed with a vote of 10-1, with Councillor Rhino voting no. Nay. Okay. So next on the agenda is the 2025-26 discussion of budget wrap-up items with Wade and Patrick.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. At last time we met regarding the budget, I had reviewed this table in relation to the budget adjustments that had been noted by council as they were going through the various sections, or staff brought forward as things that should be adjusted in the budget. I did note, however, when we had that discussion, I missed talking about this physical security audit for the $60,000 in corporate services to be funded from professional reserves. Again, this item has zero impact on the bottom line. However, I thought I'd ask the Director of Corporate Services just to have a quick comment about what that relates to. And take it away, Adam.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, just to be quick on this one, this was a previous project that council had directed staff to around security concerns around our sites. So if you recall, in the past, we had completed a security audit around this building, and we had brought you forward a list of a report on other sites that you had provided or directed staff to do that. So this is just carrying forward and continue on with the project as previously discussed by council.
Thank you, Adam. So this document that you have on CCOL and that you see on the screen here today is essentially a draft motion for consideration of council, the budget meeting committee. And it, as you can see, it has a proposed motion. It has adjustments that we have noted to date, and the urban service rate adjustment. And it also lists the tax rates that have been discussed and that are in the draft document. These reflect all the changes that we talked about in the various sections, and it goes down through there. And so this document, you see, forms the basis of a draft motion should council so wish to approve it at this time or not. But from the finance department perspective, I believe we provided all the documents on the operating budget side of the organization at this time.
Thank you, Wade. First to speak is Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, I'd first like to start by thanking finance staff for a very comprehensive document and the flexibility in answering questions as we went through each and every part of the budget procedure. I'd also like to recognize that Janice only has 3 days left, folks, and we're sure going to miss her. So having said all that, I'm going to move the motion. I'm going to ask staff to slowly scroll through the rates, because I'm going to move to recommend to council to approve the draft 2025-26 operating budget amended as per the tables on the screen. And that the mandatory provincial funding rate will summarize the costs of education and regional library to be charged on all taxable assessment, commercial, residential, and resource. and that the RCMP services to be charged on all taxable assessment, commercial, residential, and resource, and that for provincial reporting purposes, the general residential resource tax rate will be 0.795 cents per hundred, and the commercial tax rate will be $2.57 per hundred. I so move.
Okay, moved by the warden, seconded by Counselor Hebb. On to speak before the motion, Counselor Mitchell.
Yeah, just a question through staff. A line item for the library grant, is that in the binder anywhere? For the regional library grant?
PRC section.
Hmm? No, the grant that goes to the libraries. Yeah. Is that in the binder somewhere? I know the province is working on a new funding model, so I'm just curious to see if an increase is anticipated.
Through you, Madam Chair, on page 90, or sorry, page 35 of your tax analysis, your operating budget, there's an appropriation to the regional library for $178,000.
Okay. Thank you. This is just want to see you. It's different than last year.
Okay, seeing no one left to speak, what is your wish? Oh, sorry, Counselor Rhino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, to no surprise, I will not be supporting the motion. I do believe that this budget process is faster than the speed of light. Just zoom and it's over. I don't care for that. I think we probably should have went down under a lot more, but we didn't. I also have problems with the amount of hires that's gone on in the last 2 years. 3 more this year. I said this before, I have a problem with that. And also we've, with this motion, it will lower the general tax rate by ½ cent. I feel that it will not anywhere come close to the amount the assessments went up. And people will still be paying. Some may be paying a little bit less than others, but it'll be paying more than last year. And I cannot support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, seeing no one left to speak, there's a motion on the table. Question's been called, we'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed with a vote of 10 to 1. Oh. Motion is passed with a vote of 10 to in favor, 1 against, and Counselor Rhino is voting against the motion. Go ahead, Wade.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to note that we have not yet prepared the water utility draft budget for 25-26. We've got the initial start onto it. We do plan to bring it forward, but we plan to bring it forward at this time in March, as it's not ready at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. So next item. Okay, so our next item is the loan program update, Well and Septic and Pace with Amy Pine and Shaunid McDonnell.
Through the chair, I'll be presenting the loan program update for the PACE and Well and Septic loan programs report. Corporate Services, apologies, I'll put it down. Corporate Services is leading 2 financing loan programs that are currently running as pilots. As we move into the new fiscal year and with the spring construction season coming up, staff wanted to provide council with an update on the programs and discuss their continuation. Staff realized both programs have been brought before council several times, but in consideration of the new councilors, I'll provide just a brief background on each program and then update where they currently stand. So the first one, the PACE program, it was launched in June of 2022 with a council-approved lending amount of $100,000 for the pilot project with a maximum loan amount of $20,000 per applicant. The program provides financing support for eligible residents to install energy efficiency upgrades that meet a 1-to-1 debt to savings ratio. And this can include heat pumps, solar panel installation. And through the administration of this program, it has been identified that some upgrades can exceed that maximum loan amount of $20,000. For example, those solar panel installations or a combination of different home energy efficiency upgrades. The Clean Foundation administers the program and includes an administration fee, which can include a home energy assessment being performed. They also bring a level of subject matter expertise, supporting the development of energy upgrade plans and ensuring projects meet the debt to savings ratio. And they also can help residents navigate different funding opportunities if PACE is not the ideal fit for them for their efficiency upgrades. The municipality of East Hants currently has 2 residents that have completed their upgrades, with 2 resident applications that are currently in progress and 4 on the wait list, with 2 being rejected. For the Well and Septic Loan Program, it was launched this past September to provide support for eligible residents on repairs and replacements of their water supply and or septic systems, with a maximum program funding amount of $200,000 and a maximum loan amount of $25,000 per applicant. At this time, the municipality has had 7 applications submitted. 1 was rejected due to being outside the municipal boundaries. 2 applications are currently in progress, and 4 have been approved to proceed with the work. Currently, including our contingency buffer, $150,000 of the $200,000 is allocated. This program had a quick uptake as we launched it in the fall during the construction season, and it was advertised both on our social media accounts as well as through the fall newsletter, where we've had a steady stream of inquiries since. And we're anticipating another wave of interest for the upcoming spring construction season. As a pilot program, staff were initially planning to return to council around the 1-year mark, or funding was fully allocated, but as we're at 75% of funds being allocated within the first 6 months of the program, staff have opted to provide a mid-year pilot project update, requesting additional funds to allow staff to monitor the pilot program over a full seasonal cycle. And this will allow staff to have an understanding of all the pros and cons of the program and what adjustments that should be made in case it's made a more permanent program based on resident and participant feedback. And staff would then return back to council to discuss the long-term status of the program. For recommendation, if council is interested in continuing to offer a property-assessed clean energy program, staff recommend maintaining the relationship with the Clean Foundation as program administrator. And staff further recommend that the approved maximum program funding amount of $100,000 be increased to $250,000, and the maximum financing amount per household be increased from $20,000 to $25,000 to align with other East Hants funding programs. For Well and Septic Loan Program, staff recommend that the approved maximum program funding amount of $200,000 be increased to $400,000 to allow for additional program participation and continued insight into the benefits of implementing a long-term program. The recommended motion move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend the council direct staff to continue with the PACE loan program under bylaw IO 500 with administration by the Clean Foundation, with the maximum program funding amount to be increased to $250,000 and the maximum financing amount per household is to be increased to $25,000. And then to extend the Well and Septic Loan pilot program under bylaw A200 with the maximum program funding amount to be increased to $400,000.
Thank you, Shawned. First to speak is Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, just a quick question. I just read this program thing here last week and found it quite impressive. What area are the people that are applying coming from? What area of the municipality?
Through the chair, for the for both programs or
For both programs.
Both programs. Certainly, I can show an example here. This is
that in
the
the report?
table
Missed it.
showing the applicants from the PACE program. So Shubenacadie, Nine River, Hardwood Lands, and Elmsdale. And then for the well and septic, we've had Hardwood Lands, Upper Rawdon, East Walton Mill Village, and Rawdon Gold Mines. Thus far.
I do remember reading it now, I just forgot.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Hebb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff, under the PACE programs, what was a loan approved for? Like what, was it for solar panels or just a variety of things?
At the top of my head, I know it's the home energy efficiency upgrades. I don't have the details on which exact ones were approved for those two that have approved and have performed their upgrade, but I can find out that information.
I was just wondering, is there a lean to the solar program, or is it, or is it more out this way? Is there a something pending that one is above the other, like there's more interest in one project or another?
Through the chair, I know in discussions with the Clean Foundation as the administrator, they brought up that there are a lot of homeowners looking to combine efficiency upgrades, as well as solar panels was mentioned as one that comes up quite a bit, solar panel installation. So that's why they were recommending an increase in the loan amount. But in regards to specifics for those residents who have performed the work, I can get you more information on that.
And it's not necessary. I was just wondering if there was one, like solar panels, just like an example. Is that something that there's more interest in than other things? That's all. So, no, great, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. If the warden would take the chair for a moment, I just have a question to ask. And I think I already know the answer to this, but just when you were referring to construction season coming up, I just want to confirm that these programs are more like reno programs, right? It's not something that anyone who is doing a new build could be taking advantage of. It's someone who, an existing home to renovate?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. It has to be built at least 12 months. Okay. Yes.
Great, that's it for me, thank you. Thank you, Madam Warden. And next to speak is the warden.
Thank you. Well, I've been hearing good reports in our communities, particularly about the well and septic program. I haven't heard as much about the PACE program, but I'm sure it's well appreciated by those who do it. I've also heard from folks who live in neighboring municipalities who would very much like to have an opportunity to have, particularly in the well and septic program, would like to have access to a program like that would allow them to upgrade their systems and pay for it over a number of years. So I think we're doing good things for our people. It's recognized by our residents, and it's recognized by residents outside of our own municipality as well. So having said that, I'm going to move that we continue with the PACE loan program under bylaw IO-500 with administration by the Clean Foundation, with the maximum program funding amount to be increased to $250,000, and the maximum financing amount per household is to be increased to $25,000, and that we extend the well and septic loan pilot program under bylaw A-200 with the maximum program funding amount to be increased to $400,000.
Motion made by the warden Rolston, seconded by Counselor Merriam. Seeing no one to speak, okay, we'll go to the vote. Okay, and the motion has passed unanimously. Okay, counselors, seeing that it's the hour of adjournment for lunch break, what do you want to do with this? It's quick. Okay, we've got one more presentation here, and it is with Chownet as well. So maybe if counselors are okay, we'll get through this one and then we'll break for lunch. It's a quickie.
Through the chair, I'm going to be giving a report on the Climate Change Action Plan 2025-2026 proposed project council engagement. The current Municipal Climate Change Action Plan, also known as the MCAP, was created in 2013, and this report focuses on an update to the MCAP plan that has been proposed in the 2025-2026 Sustainability Work Plan. This update would help to enhance the municipality's resiliency to climate change impacts across our service areas with collaboration across departments, including with the Emergency Management Office, as we understand climate risks and their impacts on our communities and infrastructure. An important part of this update includes an engagement strategy that highlights public engagement with our communities on the topic of climate change, and this engagement will enable the municipality to understand the public's concerns about climate impacts within our communities. This also will better support the municipality in our funding applications. We have been unsuccessful in recent funding applications, as there are a lot of climate funding opportunities that we're looking for organizations to have up-to-date MCAPs, as well as community engagement consultation on proposed projects. The MCAP update will also include the development of a climate risk assessment to identify and evaluate the potential impacts of climate change on the environment, infrastructure, and economic and social systems of East Hants. This will help the municipality understand how we can become more resilient to climate change impacts and better support emergency management initiatives. This will also provide the background climate data that funders are looking for within their applications. This is an optimal time to perform this plan update, as not only do we have a designated sustainability coordinator on staff, we also are participating in the Clean Foundation's 3-year Community Climate Capacity Program, along with 18 other municipalities and communities across the province. And they provide support to our municipality on climate and environmental initiatives and provide additional capacity and expertise. So financial impact statement, an amount of $3,000 was included in the 2025-2026 draft budget to support engagement for this proposed project. Recommendation, staff recommend climate engagement as part of the MCAP project begins at the council level, and staff recommend this engagement starts with a council workshop in conjunction with the climate action training opportunity with the Clean Foundation per the November 2024 motion C-24-384. Recommended motion, move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council direct staff to schedule a climate engagement workshop with council in support of the Municipal Climate Change Action Plan update for the April Executive Committee extension date, April 17th, 2025.
Thank you. Okay, first to speak is Warden Rolston.
I would move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council direct staff to schedule a climate engagement workshop with council in support of the Municipal Climate Change Action Plan update for the April Executive Committee extension date, April 17th, 2025.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're past the hour of adjournment, so we'll be looking for an adjournment for lunch break, reconvening in the Planning Advisory Committee at 1:30. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll wait for to be off.